Morning, everyone. Welcome to the Wealthy Retailer Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Holman, for the week of January 14th. Rob Wallisher with Road 55 is going to feed us some headlines, and we're going to kick off on whatever we've got today. Rob, how you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. All kinds of headlines this week. We were just saying that, each week the headlines are a little different. And this week's just, we'll call them a little bit from the tougher category, but it is the news of the day and the stuff that, you've gone through and determined this is the stuff that the independent retailers, they got to hear. So some of those stories, this isn't so bad. It's a story about a new system called the Lightspeed Supplier Network. It's launching for bike stores, pet stores, etc., sporting good retailers through North America. So we'll chat about that. Story about rapid online retail growth being the driver for small business retailers in 2021. That topic's definitely not going away, and we'll get your thoughts there. Hindsight 2020, a story about the Canadian retail in the rearview mirror. And I think we all want to see that story in the rearview mirror, but we'll catch your thoughts with that one. And I like this. Some pharmacists out of BC, they saw an opportunity and they filled it. So a story about retail disruption in delivery. So onwards. Our first story, it comes to us from the Thompson Citizen, thompsoncitizen.net, and talking about Lightspeed with this new launch specific to the supplier side of things. They feel this new feature will help small retailers and independent suppliers better compete with the likes of Amazon. So what do you think here, Dan?
Well, certainly Dax and the team at Lightspeed have done a good job on assembling data. And this is all this is. This is an absolute data play. Lightspeed Retail is a cloud-based product. They're taking every bit of data that they have and now creating a forum, if you will, for the supplier network. They're hoping to be able to help bike stores and certainly they're going to do some stuff in restaurant as well, but yep. Bike and outdoor, really be able to connect with a supplier. I think bike stores probably have one of the largest inventory segments or inventory sets of any kind of retail. It's not uncommon for a bike store to have 100,000 SKUs in their system with parts and so on. And this is going to help align. This will also give the retailer an opportunity to be able to get online faster with better data. One of the things that Amazon does so well is assemble that data and silo everything. So when I want to look for an image or a part number or product, it's easy to find. And Lightspeed's going to do that same thing with the new Lightspeed Supplier Network. And I think you're going to see this pick up some steam going forward. It's going to make it easier for the retailer to get online for sure. Yep. But it could potentially be big business for all of them. I think it was November, Stats Canada reported the majority of online sales across the country, were between businesses and their supply chains. Wholesalers contributed about $85 billion towards our $305 billion in online revenue. Yeah. And transportation and warehousing made up another $60 billion. So, these guys are taking a bite out of, what is a pretty big opportunity. Yeah,
definitely. And I can, from the retailer side, I think of call it the professionalism of the back end.
Right.
Not only, I would think, a benefit to your system, the gosh forbid anyone still putting in their POs on the old fax machine and that, but, getting really up to speed on that front. But then I would think too, on the supplier side, that it would really provide the opportunity that some suppliers would look at you, the retailer, and say, geez, this is a retailer we really want to go through brick walls for.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you're also going to see, when a retailer engages with a supplier, the supplier is going to be steering them towards this product because their entire catalog is available there. Right. And the catalog in the way they want it shown, not the way that, sometimes, our half-assed approach to getting products online, right. Comes across. This is going to be a little bit stronger for them, for sure.
Good stuff. Okay, well, I'd say you're the guy to give a quick call to, right? If you wanted to learn a little bit more there, but we'll get to that towards the end. Our next story comes from E. Mazzanti. I'm probably Emazanti. Dan, pronounce it for me.
It's Mazzanti, yeah.
The just really jumping into the digital side of what's going to be driving that growth in 2021. And I like this line for those retailers who may be looking for opportunities scattered amongst the clouds. So they go through a bunch of different points here. Dan, what'd you think about this one?
Well, I pulled out of this article, the online retail growth tips for 2021. So, their tips. Number one, be online. Obviously, you've got to be online. According to Google, 63% of shoppers, the shopping journey begins online. We've talked about this consumer that, they have this buying phase or system the same way that we have a selling system in our stores. And they start with dreaming, exploring, selecting, and enjoying. And that dreaming starts online. You have to be online. Tools like Shopify are providing relatively easy path for the retailer to get online, and you've got to be there. You have to optimize your experience. Number two is optimize the experience. According to Statista, search and navigation is the most important site element for an online shopper. Having product ratings and reviews is the second most important. Their third tip was you have to be fast. Consumers want a fast, frictionless shopping experience. We have to try to give that to them. Number four, don't scare them off. The Baymard Institute says that having extra costs is the number one reason for shopping cart abandonment. Likewise, forcing a shopper to create an account is the number two reason. So do whatever you can do not to scare them off once they get to your site. Number five.
Would that be most of the extra costs? Like, that's where the shipping costs.
Oh, for sure it is.
Reveal itself. And so you'd say like, just try and fuel that conversation earlier in the journey. How would you approach that?
Well, I can tell you from experience, people don't like paying for shipping. Yeah. People will only pay for shipping when it expedites something. So I can have it on Friday instead of next Thursday. Now I'm going to pay for it. So paying for expedited shipping, I think, is acceptable. But otherwise, shipping costs are a challenge for us, and retailers will balk at it, especially, if we're shopping local. I shouldn't have to pay for shipping. I should be able to do a curbside pickup, or I should be able to get free shipping in my local community. And you have to establish what that line is, what that number is in your store. If it's $100, to eliminate the $10 shipping fee or the $12 shipping fee, so be it. That's what we need to do. Don't scare people off with adding costs at the point of checkout. Be clear and concise about what your shipping charges are, or, what your free sort of shipping plateau is.
Yeah.
For sure. One of the other tips they had was be persistent. For most websites, only 2% of web traffic converts on the first visit. So retargeting website visitors makes them 43% more likely to buy. Retargeting needs to become part of your arsenal in charging forward with your online strategy, for sure. The other three things that I really like: be efficient. You can't afford to advertise to everyone. Online digital advertising practices such as retargeting and geofencing that we talked about, I think, on the last podcast, enable small business to be more effective with scarce ad dollars. We don't have a plethora of cash to throw around at this. And so we do need to be efficient and not advertise to every single person. Know who your customer is and go and speak directly to them.
Yeah, totally.
And then lastly, build a community with your social media. Share, your videos, your outdoor experiences, whatever consumers have interest in. Engagement builds loyalty. Talk to your customers and find out what engages them. You want to grow your business, get into this article, pull out 4 or 5 things and use it as a checklist. I'm doing it or I'm not doing it.
And making a plan for it. Yeah.
And make a plan.
And not with a fire hose either. Like, it all doesn't have to happen next week.
Right.
And
Right.
be real to yourself. I love, there were a couple parts in when you did your 20 for 21 list this year, really that focused on that I'll call it your time, like that just spending time to think about where you're going, what you're working on.
Right.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And then taking a targeted approach to it, not like you say, a fire hose. Let's just be really, really targeted. Let's decide on doing this one thing this week or this month.
Well, and on that, all on the digital side too, realizing that, the tools are there to get more targeted, to try and, really use those dollars efficiently. But then don't lose sight of once that's still on the top end of the funnel, once you get them closer to the boat.
Right.
Okay, you've got them now, and don't forget about that. Like, put them in your bucket and then be prepared to do things with them after, because I'll be the first to tell you that getting them in the first place is the most expensive part of the adventure. And you're going to sell them more than one thing, and look at that investment too, as this is not just a one-time purchase. It's are they going to buy 5, 10, 20 times from you in the next year, the next 2 years? And all of a sudden that initial investment starts making a lot more sense of what you're going to do with them.
And the lifetime value of a customer is something that is so underrated. We don't know how to count it. Yeah. And if we went back, and looked at some of our best customers, how many times they purchase from us throughout the year, it's much easier. It's much more cost effective to get them to buy again than it is to get them to buy the very first time. It takes a lot of effort to get them to trust you that very first time. The second, third, fourth, 20th time, much, much easier.
Yeah, right on. Okay, folks, this podcast is brought to you by Canadian Retail Solutions. Let them help you find your cutting-edge retail solution today. If you haven't yet, please visit retailbycrs.com. Definitely sign up for the newsletter when you're there. Lots of great info from the latest point of sale software, merchandise intelligence, open-to-buy plans, and more. They are here to help. Okay, Dan, our next story that let's make it the smallest rear view mirror we can. We don't want to see too much of it, but a story from retailinsider.com, just taking a look back at the 2020 that was. What do you think here?
Yeah, this is a great article for everyone to read. I think it sort of gives us, the ability to let go. This is how you summarize what last year was. And Craig Patterson at Retail Insider did a great job, summarizing, maybe not summarizing, but going into some detail on what last year was, what 2020 was. And I think it started with people believing that it was now the retail apocalypse, that the pandemic was going to create that. Well, it didn't really create an apocalypse, while it did certainly create a lot of havoc. A lot of stores closed, and food and beverage. And there was a lot of challenge in 2020. And I think what I really admired most about this article was, the positives that come out of some of this negative, that there is a lot of retail growth. There's a lot of opportunity. There's opportunities to really renegotiate. Landlords are becoming more and more apt to have good conversations with you. You're as important to them today, or more important to them today, than I think you've ever been. I also think that, with this retail challenge that 2020 was, it has created great opportunity for growth. I think we saw maybe Quicksilver, had about 50 stores planned. There's a bunch of really good things. And only when you look backwards, and here's what I did after I read this article, I kind of, you read the whole thing and you're like, yeah, it's kind of a downer, but I'm still here. I've modified how I'm doing business a little bit, but I'm still here. And we're in no way, shape, or form out of the 2020. 2020, really has 15 or 16 months to it. 2021 is not a new lease on life. It wasn't a reset for us. We're still in the midst of this. It's going to be for a few more months. And I think that we have to relish in the fact that, hey, we're still here. We're still doing business. We're getting stronger and stronger every single day. Yes, there's going to be some drop off. Yes, there's going to be some challenge, coming off of holiday. There's going to be stores, primarily in probably Manitoba and Ontario, that, really had retail hurt through holiday, effectively shut down for Boxing Day, one of the biggest days of the year. So I think there's still going to be some tragedy come from that. But for those of us that remain standing, we've redesigned our businesses. We've re-envisioned how we want to move forward. And this is all about just putting 2020 behind us and moving on.
Yeah. It almost feels like that, we all got punched real hard to the ground. And this is that phase where we're standing up and we're dusting off a little and we're looking ahead and, kind of holy moly, what was that behind us? And
right.
And I think I think for me and my own business too, Dan, I'd encourage people to look at it as well, to look back at that year. And I guarantee you there's something you did or started that you probably wouldn't have had not all of this. And,
right.
And I definitely appreciate a few things that I can honestly say, man, I don't think I would have done that, or we would have tried that or gone that route had not this happened. And still got to build on it yet. And
I feel like I've said this before, Rob, 2020 is just a revolutionary year that forced evolution. And from every revolution, we're going to evolve. And you're seeing a healthier retailer come of it. And those retailers, that have evolved a little bit, that learned how to adapt, that learned how to do business a different way and are still here, they're going to be here for a long time. The ones that we've lost, and certainly there's thousands of jobs and stores, that have fallen by the wayside, there'll be stores open in their place. There'll be re-envisioned stores. Entrepreneurial spirit is alive and well. It's going to come back with a vengeance.
I think there's a whole group in that dusting off category right now who literally did get knocked out.
Yep.
But believe you me, they are going to come back and they're going to find a way.
And there were a lot of opportunities for retail resets, with some subsidy, with some get out of jail free, stuff where, you're allowed to kind of reset. You dust yourself off and you replan what you want to be, who you want to be, and how you want to deliver to her.
Good stuff. Well, then, each week we try and touch on give some tools to the folks, and if they haven't yet, head to thewealthyretailer.com. There's some great videos there. One of them is retail math, and this week you're just going to touch on one. I think it's the sell-through percentage. Dan, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, sell-through is the measure of turning inventory back into cash. And whether you look it up on Google or you're familiar with sell-through, this is really what sell-through is. It is your ability to take inventory and turn it back to cash, and that's how we measure it. So we start with how much inventory you received, we divide it by how much you sold, and that's your sell-through percentage. Ideally, that percentage runs between 85 and 90%, never really higher than 90. If your sell-through is higher than 90%, you're probably missing some opportunity. And so, often we've been told sell-through or taught that sell-through is measured at the unit level. And, even your suppliers or your vendors are going to ask you about or talk to you about sell-through at a unit level. And I've said this for a long time. I'm going to keep saying it. Yep. Retail's about cash. Let's measure the cash performance of the business. I invested $100,000 in inventory. I sold $75,000 of it. I've got a 75% sell-through. What can I do? Net dollars sold. What can I do to improve that just a little bit to improve my cash position and the freshness of my inventory? The better our freshness, the easier it is to acquire a sale.
Right on. Well, if you have, that's just one point on the retail math, folks, and there's a lot of other
ton of KPIs over there. Yeah,
totally. So if you haven't yet, go check that out, and let Dan share the goodness with you. And okay, Dan, I think this is something that this is one of those stories. This next one where all this disruption comes, and it probably wouldn't have started what it started had that initial friction not happened. From retailinsider.com, story about this group of pharmacists in BC who just saw this need to accelerate the development of next day delivery of online pharmacy for British Columbians in literally all corners of the province. What do you think?
Well, I keyed off on this article simply because it is an out of the box, abnormal approach. It is disruption. And I chose to highlight the pharmacists, because it's never something that we ever really talk about in our specialty retail world.
Right.
Pharmacy isn't something that, reigns high on our client lists. But what I did love about this is that these guys are out there disrupting retail. They're disrupting that pharmaceutical retail, and every single retailer, no matter what your vertical is, has the ability to disrupt. It was them saying, hey, here's a need. How do we satisfy this need? And it wasn't, how do I grow sales? How do I sell to all corners of the province? It was, there's a need. How do we accomplish this? What can we do? What hoops do we need to jump through to be able to disrupt this space? And I think you're going to see that move across the country, specifically in today's sort of pre or post or during the pandemic, how challenging it is to get products and supplies. And, look at some of the, retail challenge that's out there with closures again, coming in Toronto. They're more and more strict, and things like this are going to help the consumer. And every retailer needs to ask themselves, what else can I do? Yeah. Identify a problem and then come up with a possible solution. And it needs to be an out-of-the-box solution. You've got to be thinking, and this comes from, one of the 20 for 21 tips that we had was clarity breaks. Taking that time to envision, what can I do? How can I do? Getting realigned and reset and thinking more big picture. And this is what these guys are doing. And they should be applauded for it. And every single retailer out there needs to think about, how do they re-envision their delivery? How do they get out of the box that they're in today?
Yeah. Well, and I would honestly say, all due respect to pharmacists, but they wouldn't have been on my top 50 list of who's gonna capture the entrepreneurial spirit and put something together that's gonna go chase business down,
right?
With this new opportunity, and so I quickly say, man, if that category can find an opportunity like this, there's opportunities. Take a few clarity breaks and right. Take that outsider view and take the consumer view. And I'm in this corner of the province. I'd like this right now. How are you going to help me? And right. Maybe there's a solution there. So right on.
Yeah,
okay,
I think
Dan?
There's a lot of these opportunities, Rob, that every retailer can go chase.
Good stuff. Okay. Well, you got the rest of the day. If you're listening to it right now, start that thinking, what are you going to find in your corner of the world? We've got all of these the links to these stories in the newsletter. If you haven't, head to retailbycrs.com. We've got a bunch of other stories as well. Some things we didn't quite get a chance to chat about today. One, Torstar just partnered with Golf Town to acquire Score Golf magazine. And I thought that was really interesting, where here's the worlds of media and retail merging together. We heard a lot about all of these buy now, pay later. Another one, Afterpay, story about suddenly they're everywhere. And why is that? So we've got that. The augmented reality in the dressing room mirror, interesting story there. And a story, 5 hot banking and payment trends that the writer feels will only get hotter in 2021. Well, Dan, bring us home.
Yeah. Listen, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Head over to head over to retailbycrs.com, subscribe for our weekly newsletter, get a copy of the podcast and all the news that we talk about, plus some other good stuff. And if you have any questions or anything, don't be afraid to shoot an email over to Dan@thewealthyretailer.com. Happy retailing, everyone.
Right on. Thank you.